All right, let's get started. Thank you everyone for joining and welcome to another Release Automation Community Webcast. Today we'll be covering CA Release Automation version 6.2, and we'll have the presentation presented by Uri Scheiner, Senior Director of Product Management. If you have any questions during the presentation today, you can feel free to put them in the Q&A box at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, and we'll get to them at the end of the session. We will also be opening the line up for verbal questions at the end of the session. So if you have anything you'd like to ask over the phone, just hang tight until the end and we will answer it at that point. Now I'm going to hand the session over to Uri Scheiner. Go ahead, Uri.
Thanks, Melanie. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our public webcast of Release Automation. As Melanie said, my name is Uri and I am the product manager responsible for the Release Automation domain within CA Technologies. And in this webcast, we will talk about the new increment of the Release Automation, which is 6.2. So basically, we released Release Automation 6.2 at the end of July, about 10 days ago. And it was out only 3 months after the previous delivery of Release Automation 6.1. And we're trying to keep the cadence of 3 months between different deliveries of the product. We just think that 3 months is a decent amount of time for you guys to adopt the next delivery of the product. Evaluate it and give us feedback so we can have enough time to address those inputs in the next increment of release. So you can expect to have the same cadence in our upcoming deliveries as well. As you guys probably know, we introduced a new module of Release Automation as part of our 6.0 release earlier this year, which we called Release Automation Continuous Delivery Edition, or as we call it internally, RACDE. So while Release Automation is focused on the bits and bytes and the process of automating the whole logic of deployment on a given environment, the Continuous Delivery Edition of RA allow you to orchestrate and manage the whole delivery cycle all the way to production and helping you to optimize the entire continuous delivery pipeline, helping you to understand what are the challenges that you have along the way so you can address those challenges and eventually get your content to the market faster, improve the experience of that you're giving to your customers, and eventually, have some impact of the bottom line of your business. So let's talk a little bit about the highlights of the product of this 6.2 delivery. On the core, I would say, of Release Automation, we have some really cool new stuff. First, we added some more support for different platforms that you guys can use in order to perform deployments using Release Automation. We improved the security of the product by replacing the internal JVM with Java 8. We added a new plugin for Microsoft CSS 2016, and we also collected some, we addressed some ideas that we got from you guys, things that were posted in Release Automation community. In the Continuous Delivery Edition of Release Automation, we've also added a lot of new cool capabilities that really broaden the value of Release Automation and allow you to do more stuff with the product. We improved the security model of the product. We've added a notification mechanism that allows you to understand whether there is something that would need your attention. We improved the integration we had with Agile Central. We also added a very unique dependency mechanism that will allow you to make sure that you are releasing stuff in the right order. And we've also added another phase approval mechanism that will allow you to have another pair of eyes, manual eyes, on everything that needs to be deployed, especially on production environment. Now let's take a deeper dive into all the features and functions that I just outlined. I will go over each and every item I have just explained, so you know what is the value behind it and how it basically works. So again, on the release automation piece, obviously, you know, our users, you guys, most of them are coming from large enterprise companies, and you need to work in a very heterogeneous environment using different technologies and different types of platforms in order to provide a service to your customers. We get an ongoing number of requests to broaden our support metrics for the product to make sure that we can support additional set of technologies where deployments can take place. So in 6.2, we focused on two different technologies. The first one is AIX 7.2. It means that the agents can now be deployed on that platform, and therefore deployments can take place on these types of systems. And we also have support for Oracle Linux 6.7. It's across the whole architecture of release automation, meaning that the actual product can also be installed on that platform as well. We also upgraded the Java version where the agents are running on. So the internal JVM for the agents was improved from Java 7 to Java 8. It means that the agents are now more secured than they were in previous releases. We also added the ability to purge environments that are not in use. It's a very common use case to create environments for a specific scenario, for a specific project, and later on you would like to delete those environments. It was not always possible in the product, and now you have no problem to purge those environments and get your system into a cleaner state. CSS. So we have some plugins for other CI solutions like Jenkins and TeamCity, and we are working for others as well. Those plugins allow our users to perform a continuous integration solution between these guys. So once the build is ready, you can kick off a deployment within release automation that takes these artifacts and deploy them on the testing environment. And we filter back the results into the CI solution. So we broaden our solution in 6.2 by providing a similar plugin for Microsoft CSS 2015, basically allowing you to perform continuous integration process from within CSS. Communities are very important for us, right? This is the best channel that we have between you guys and us, the product management team of release automation. And this is a great mechanism for us to understand what you guys are basically asking from us to add to the product to make your life easier. So in every plan that we have for an upcoming release of the product, we make sure that we allocate a decent amount of our resources to make sure that we also address feedback and ideas we get from the community. So these are only a couple of examples that we have of ideas that came up in the community and were addressed in 6.2. So the first one actually relates to the previous discussion, the previous slide I just shared with you, the continuous integration scenario. When using our Jenkins plugin, you are now able to kick off a build, or I would say a deployment, with the new build that was just created, even if the state is unstable. Before 6.2, it was not available. You were able to do that only when the job was successful. There are many scenarios, and it is actually outlined very well in the community ID, that in many cases you would like to kick off the release even if the job was not stable, because it doesn't always imply that the artifacts were not created successfully. So now that flow can run seamlessly between Jenkins and release automation. The next two additions, the next two improvements we have are, for me, really interesting because they show the maturity of our customers and the level of complexity that they have achieved by using the product. So these are really advanced scenarios, and it is important for us to understand that we definitely would like to make sure that while you guys are also doing some simple use case, we want to make sure that we can let you do the more complex, advanced, enterprise-level scenarios with release automation, and we want to improve that experience as we move forward. So the first item here is basically allow you to update environment parameters during a specific deployment. The environment parameter management console is a really great addition to release automation. It was out in release 5.0, and that allows you to define environment-sensitive parameters that the product can use automatically whenever a deployment takes place. So we know which values to use in a given deployment based on the environment that was selected. So with the new addition that we just introduced, we give you the ability to define those environment data during the actual course of deployment. So you don't need to define that in advance. You can set it up using the initialization phase of the deployment, and you can also define if that data is transient, so it's being used on the specific deployment, or it can be something more stable, so you can use the same environment data across different deployments on the same environment. The other one that we've added is the ability to get a much better information about the status of the deployment and a specific step within a given action. So it's a great scenario or where you want to know what is the status of a given step, not only in the specific phase where the release is currently running. For example, if you are in the post-deployment phase of a deployment, you may want to know what is the status of a specific step even in the previous deployment phase. So we can do some more sophisticated logic and provide that data to external dashboards. And some more concrete examples are outlined in the ideas as well. So again, these two ideas, as I said, are really advanced ones and show how matured and how the product is helping you to solve complex problems. Another community idea relates to APIs of the product. We are under a big project to make sure that all the functionality that the product provides is available via public external APIs. And every time there is a new feature, a new capability that we're adding, we make sure that all its APIs, all its functionality is exposed in public APIs that you guys can use in order to automate the operations or to get data out of the system for external dashboard capabilities. But we're not doing this only for new features. We also go to our more legacy modules and make sure that capability is being exposed as well. In every increment of release automation, we focus on a specific area, and we make sure that that area's capabilities is exposed in APIs. We have most of the stuff, especially around design and execution of deployments, being exposed. In 6.2, we were focusing on users and permission management, and these APIs are now available as a public API. As I said, we have some more ideas that are now part of this version, and I just focused on some of them. Let's talk about release automation, the continuous delivery addition module. So as I said, we introduced it a couple of months ago, and we didn't really anticipate the great feedback and the amount of traction that we will get such a short while after this guy was introduced. We have many of our existing and new customers that saw the product, they were so excited about it, and they either evaluated it or still in the evaluation process. Some of them already actually bought it, and it's being used as part of their deployment lifecycle, and the feedback that we get is extremely positive. Of course, we get feedback about new capabilities that need to be added into the product. Some of those stuff are in 6.2, and you will see some additional addition to the CDE module later on in our upcoming deliveries. So let's start with the first thing that we will talk on the CDE piece of the product, improved security model. So obviously, you know, enterprise usage of the product, it's very important to make sure that you have full segregation between different stakeholders of the release, right? The best example and the easiest one to understand is you want to make sure that no one can perform, not everyone, I would say, can perform deployments on the production environment. You want to make sure that you can do that kind of segregation. So we had a very limited one in previous versions. 6.2 comes with a full segregation policy that allows you to define who can do what in a given release. So you can decide which operation can be done by which user or group. And it doesn't matter if it's an LDAP user group or those entities that were defined manually in the system. Another very important addition to the product is a notification mechanism. In 6.2, you can define that you would like to get notified whenever your attention is needed. It can be either because something has failed or maybe there is a manual step that you guys need to perform, and there are some other examples as well. Until 6.2, all this data was available in the dashboard of continuous delivery edition of RA. In 6.2, all this information can be sent to you via an email, and here we can see just an example of how this notification looks like. A new integration with Agile Central. So about a year ago, CA acquired Raleigh, and we, even as part of the first release of CDE, part of the 6.0 delivery, we did seamless integration with these guys, making sure that the user stories and the changes defined in the level of Raleigh are associated with the relevant release. So you have a full end-to-end story from the time you design and develop a specific change in Raleigh to the point where you actually deploy the same code and change behind the business requirement and see how that change is being pushed all the way to production. So the acquisition of Raleigh gave us a great opportunity to offer the product to the Raleigh customers, and they definitely see the benefit of how release automation can complement the Raleigh story. So as we move forward, we want to broaden the integration between the two solutions, and in 6.2, we added the ability to associate the results of tests as defined in Raleigh to a given release. In continuous delivery, one of the biggest concerns that people face is degradation of quality. They want to make sure they're not promoting anything to the next phase if the quality level is not as we want to be. So the new integration allows you to see the results of the test in a given phase, and based on the results, you can decide if you want to promote either manually or automatically the change to the next phase. And what we see here is that we're not promoting the code because some of the tests has failed, and the integration allow you to see not only the results, the end results that the test has failed, you can also see exactly which result has failed, and based on that, you can make a decision if change can be promoted or not. You probably want to make some changes to get the newer build from the R&D and run the test cycle again. And only if the test has failed, and only if all the test cases pass successfully, you would promote the change to the next phase all the way to production. Dependency management, a very important new capabilities, especially for our enterprise users. It is a very common scenario where you have different releases in your pipeline that must be deployed in a certain order, and there is a dependency between those different releases. So you either want to make sure that release A will be deployed before release B, or release A or release B must be deployed on an environment where release A has been deployed before. So you can design and manage those dependencies in CDE, and whenever you will try to perform a deployment outside of these dependencies, if those dependencies will not met, the order will not meet, then we will alert you that there is a conflict, and then you can fix that before you move forward with the deployment. But really make sure that your environment, the production environment, will be in a stable state, and that you will not be in a case where you are deploying a partial content of your delivery. So of course, continuous delivery, the whole idea of continuous delivery and continuous deployment is all about making sure that everything is as automated as possible. However, we do know that that is not always the case when it comes to the actual production environment. We want to automate as much as we can, and all the different areas of the deployment must be automated. However, we always want to make sure that we have a second pair of eyes looking into the status of the change that we would like to deploy, and if everything is okay, we can approve the release, and then it's being deployed into the production environment. So 6.2 comes with a manual approval on a given phase. For every phase that you have, it doesn't have to be production. We do have some users that they want to have the same level of control in staging environments, for example. You can set it up in the level of phase, and then you can decide, of course, who is the relevant stakeholder that can approve the deployment on that given phase. So these are, I would say, some of the key capabilities that we've added into this increment of release automation. We have many additional stuff in 6.2. We have more features, more enhancements requests, a lot of customer cases and issues that we're addressing in 6.2. We just don't want to spend all time on these. I want to focus on the market features. But all this data is available in our release notes. So you can use this link in order to understand the full content of 6.2 release. One of the biggest things we want, one of the most important things for us, is to make sure that you guys are upgrading as fast as you can. We want to make sure that you guys are always up to date with the latest and greatest of release automation. That's why we are increasing the cadence, because we want you to adopt new version, give us feedback so we can improve with every increment of release automation. And in order to achieve that, we make sure that the upgrade is as simple as possible. So in 6.2, I can tell you that the upgrade is simpler than ever, simply because even if you're using release automation 5.5, for example, you can use the same agents. We have full backward compatible with agents of release automation 5.5. You do not need to upgrade those ends, only the execution servers and the management server. And that will be something that we are working as well. So as I said, you just need to upgrade those tiers and work with legacy agents. Of course, if you decide to upgrade those agents as well, you will gain some performance improvements, but this is for you to decide. All right, community. Obviously, community is very important for us. This is the best way for us to communicate with you guys. This is where you can ask questions. You can ask the CA team or other users questions. This is where we can get feedback from you about stuff we're building. This is where you can be up to date with everything that is going on within release automation domain. And this is where you guys can submit ideas that later on can be turned into new features in the product. So I would like to invite you, and I would like you to invite your colleagues to our community so they can be part of our RA family as well. Also relates to our community. We do have the customer validation program, which is running for a couple of years now. We want to really up-level it and make sure that it makes it much easier for you guys to engage with us in order to help us to shape the direction of the product. We basically want to invite you to partner with us on any given feature that we are planning to add to the product. And once you make a decision to partner with us, it means you will be a key stakeholder with the design and the development of that specific area. Later on in the next week or so, we will post in the community the ability for you guys to decide which area you would like to participate in terms of shaping the direction and the functionality of that area. Whatever area that you select, it means that you will be invited to our design sessions. You will be shared with mock-ups and ideas and stuff we would like to build. You give us feedback, and later on you will participate in our sprint reviews so you can see the progress of that area of these features way before it goes into GA. So we know for sure that if you guys are interested in a specific area and we want to provide a solution for that area, we know that we are building things based on your input. If you want to be involved, Melanie put an announcement in our community which gives you the instructions of what you need to do in order to be part of this partnering program. You need to do some, some formal documents, but it's not very complicated. And from that point in time, you are part of that program, and we will invite you to all the relevant sessions. I think this basically it. This sums the stuff I wanted to share. Before we will share with you some of the upcoming events that we will have as part of the community, I would like to know if there are any questions, either in the chat box or verbally. So Melanie?
Just a reminder, if anyone has questions, you can enter them in the Q&A box at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or to ask a verbal question, you can press #6 on your telephone keypad to unmute yourself. We'll pause for just a minute to collect any questions. Okay, is there, I saw a question come in. Okay, we have a question from Shiva Tripathi. How do we handle process-based automation version management, especially in a scenario where everything is treated as code?
Yes, so great question. One of the things you'll see in our partner program is exactly that area. We are now working on a very interesting and unique offering that allow you to do those stuff, pipeline as a code, and improve the way you can version not only the process, but also other areas of the product. So please stay tuned for announcement on this area later on in the community.
Okay, we have another question in from Ralph. Is there some more information available about TFS 2015 plugin? We're using vNext builds and would like to execute an auto deployment with the build failed if the deployment failed.
Yes, so we do, the TFS plugin is available on the Microsoft Marketplace. So you can download the plugin. It contains all the documentation that you need, and it's definitely address the scenario that you have outlined. And if you have feedback about, as I said, just to improve this plugin, just reach out and we will work with you to make sure that we are addressing those extra capabilities that are needed. Do we have more questions, Melanie?
Yes, we had one come out into the chat box, actually, from Brian. Are all of the releases cumulative? We may want to skip some releases and catch up later.
Say again? Sorry, I was...
Are all of the releases cumulative? We may want to skip some releases and catch up later.
Yes. So as I said, it's a very good question. So the formal cadence is, as I said, about 3 months. And we have the cumulative coming up every month. However, every release, every 6.2, 6.3, and etc., comes with all the cumulative applied as part of this version. So if you didn't catch up our recent cumulative, you can definitely catch up if you are applying the recent version of RA. So for example, if you will upgrade to 6.2, you will have all the cumulative and all the service packs that we delivered in the last couple of months.
Okay. Any other questions? We'll pause for just another minute if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask. Another question in from Shiva. How do the products cope up with the DB deployments?
Okay, very good question. So we do have several action packs that allow you to perform and run some scripts. Again, DB, I don't know if you mean, the rational databases like MySQL and MSQL, etc. All that is part of our action pack library. We're also working to make sure that we deliver the same level of support for big data databases as well.
Any other questions? Once again, you can enter them into the Q&A box at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, or press #6 on your telephone keypad if you'd like to ask a verbal question. Okay, So if there are no more questions, I'm going to put up a poll. If you could please vote on this poll and rate the quality of today's webcast topic. We value your opinions on what types of topics you'd like to see more of in the future, so your responses really help us to map out what we'll be presenting on in coming webcasts. If you have any questions that you think of later, you can feel free to put them into the community, or you can reach out to any of the product team to get answers on that as well. We do have a few more webcasts coming up. On August 17th, we have a webcast on release automation, CD edition, and its integration with Agile Central and Jira. If you'd like to join that event, you can find that in the top right-hand corner of the release automation community, and you can RSVP to let us know whether you're going to be attending. We also have replays of all of our previous webcasts available on the Release Automation community. You can find those, either the most recent ones are featured in the featured content section on the Release Automation homepage, or you can just search for webcast recap from the content page within the Release Automation community to find all of these recaps that feature the plugin, the recordings, as well as any Q&A transcripts and the presentations that are presented on every one of these webcasts. We will be posting the recording of today's session in the community later today, so keep an eye out for that. And other than that, I think we are all done for today. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much, Uri, for giving the presentation today, and we hope to see you on the next webcast.
Thank you very much.